Good day, students. Welcome to mathgotserved.com. In this clip, we're going to be going over problems 6 to 10, part 2 of the updated version of our Accuplacer Elementary Algebra practice test. All right, let's take a look at problem number 6. It reads, if x is greater than 2, then x squared minus x minus 6 over x squared minus 4 is equal to. So one thing you want to note when factoring difference of squares, as shown in the denominator here, is that the factored state of a difference of squares is the sum and difference of the roots of a and b, okay, the first and the second term. All right, keep that in mind. These are the steps we're going to use to solve this problem. First of all, we're going to factor the numerator and the denominator. It's good to do them separately so we don't get our work confused. And then we'll cancel out any common factors. Notice the keyword here is factors. Those are the only things you can divide out. The formula we're going to be using for this problem is a squared minus b squared. This is the difference of squares formula as highlighted here earlier. When you factor in difference of squares and then you root the first and the second term, the factored state is the sum and difference, not sum, or difference. A plus b, sum and difference a minus b, okay? All right, with that in mind, let's go ahead and solve the problem. So we have x squared minus x minus 6 divided by x squared minus 4. So first thing we'll extract is the numerator. The numerator is x squared minus x minus 6. So I'm going to proceed to factor this by group using the x game, okay? I'm going to factor this using the x game, also known as the AC method. There are many methods that can be used to factor this. Some students like to guess and check, but I like to use the AC method because it's very safe. Okay, so we have AC on top and B on the bottom. In this quadratic expression right here, a is the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. B is the coefficient of x, which is -1. And c is the constant -6. All right, so a times c is 1 times -6, which is -6, and b is -1. Now, to factor this polynomial, we're going to think about two numbers that multiply to give you -6 and add to give you -1. So think about all the factors, all the pairs of numbers that multiply to give you 6. 2 and 3 work perfectly here. Now, the tricky thing about a problem like this is the sign. All right, you have to be really careful when determining what the signs are. Now, since the sum is negative, the bigger of these two has to be negative. So it's -3 times 2 is -6. -3 plus 2 is -1. Excellent. Now, since a is 1, we don't have to bother to factor in by grouping. We can jump straight to the factored state, which is x plus 2. See this 2 right here? Put it in here. And then x minus 3. All right, so that's the factored state of the numerator. What do we do next? We're going to direct our attention to the denominator. Okay, do it one by one. Don't get yourself confused by trying to do everything together. So in the denominator, we have x squared minus 4. We can use the x game here. That will work perfectly fine. We can also use the difference of squares formula. Okay, so whichever one you want. I will use the difference of squares formula here. So whenever you have a square minus a square, you use the difference of squares. You take the square root of the first and the last, and then you find the sum and the difference of the square roots, okay? So basically in this problem, a squared is x squared, and b squared is 4, okay? And if you want to find a and b to find your sum and the differences, you just take the square roots, right? Because square root is the opposite of square. So you root those two, and what does that tell us? that follows that A is x and B is 2. Okay? So when you find the square root of x squared, you have x, and then the square root of 4 is 2, and then you have another x and a 2. So what goes in between them? Plus, plus, minus, 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 plus, or plus, minus. Just make sure the signs are different, okay? Different, okay? So you have plus, x plus 2, and x minus 2. That is a factored state of x squared minus 4. Okay, so do not forget that the signs are different. So what I'll do is I'll rewrite this polynomial expression. It's rational polynomial. I'm using the factored state, so I'll have x plus 2 times x minus 3 divided by x plus 2 times x minus 2. So x plus 2 times x minus 2. All right, now I'm going to reduce. Notice these two quantities have been multiplied by each other. Now, what is the opposite of multiplication? Division, okay? So you can only divide out product of quantities or product of numbers. You can't divide out sum or differences, okay? So keep that in mind. So I can divide these out because they are factors, and I'm left with x minus 3 times, divided by x minus 2. The question now is, can I divide out the x's? This is x minus 3 and x minus 2. What is the opposite of minus? The opposite of minus is plus, not divide. So you cannot divide out sums or products of terms. You cannot divide out sums or differences of terms. Only products, okay? Because the opposite of product is division. So since these two are minuses, you can't just cancel those out. The only way to get rid of the x's is by subtracting x's from the top and the bottom. All right? So this right here is your final answer. And that is option number letter B. All right, let's take a look at problem 7. Problem 7, you have to find 4 minus negative 6 divided by negative 5. So here, there are two tips here I'd like you to keep in mind. First of all, if you have more than one sign between two numbers, as you can see here, you want to resolve them, okay? Either multiply them, basically multiply them together so that you just have one sign and it's easy to combine, okay? Another thing to note, we talked about this in part 2, is that anytime you are multiplying the same sign, you get a positive. What do you think happens when you multiply or divide different signs? You get a negative, okay? All right, so keep that in mind. So the steps we're going to use are as follows. We're going to write down our order of operations acronym, PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And apply it to this expression, okay? So let's write down the problem. 4 minus negative 6 divided by negative 5. Order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We don't have any parentheses or exponents here, but we have multiplication. What are we multiplying? We are multiplying this sign right here is being multiplied by this number right here, okay? So remember I said, it was stated earlier that if you have two signs in between two numbers, you want to resolve them. The operation here is multiplication, so we'll multiply these two signs. Okay, so what is minus times minus? Let's do a real quick review. If you have minus times minus, or plus times plus, what do you notice here? The two signs are the same. Anytime you're multiplying or dividing signs that are the same, you get positive, okay? And then if you have minus times plus or plus times minus, you get a negative, okay? This applies to division also. All right, so minus times minus, the signs are the same. This becomes 4 plus 6 over negative 5. Some teachers say slash and dash whenever you have minus and minus. Okay, so there you have it. Now we have one sign between these two numbers, which is perfect. So if you read this expression, this is 4 plus 6 over negative 5. So basically the numerator is grouped together and the denominator is just negative 5. So we're now going to resolve the parentheses in the numerator as a result of the grouping of this quotient. So we basically work on p parentheses. 4 plus 6 is 10. And then we have 10 divided by negative 5. All right? Okay, so what is 10 divided by negative 5? Well, we know that 10 over 5 is 2. Is it positive or negative? Remember, whenever you're dividing different signs, the 10 is positive. You always have a negative. So your answer is negative 2, option letter D. All right, let's take a look at problem number 8. It reads, if 2x minus 3 times the quantity x plus 4 is equal to negative 5, then x equals. Now, one reminder is that whenever you're distributing a negative number, do not forget to distribute the sign. Okay, so in this case, we're going to be distributing this negative number. So we do not want to forget that negativity because it affects the result of the product. Okay, so please do not forget that point. Now, steps. First thing we're going to do is simplify this equation. We're solving this equation for x. We want to get x by itself, but it looks very complicated. So we're going to simplify it by getting rid of this parenthesis. Okay. After that, we'll combine like terms and isolate x using the appropriate algebraic procedures. All right. So let's go ahead and write down the equation. We're just solving this equation right here. Now, let's see. First thing we want to do is get rid of this parentheses. We're distributing negative 3, not just a 3, okay? So be careful with that. To x and 4, okay? So we're going to have 2x, negative 3 times positive x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times positive 4 minus times plus is minus. 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, it looks less intimidating now without the parentheses. We are going to proceed to combine like terms. 2x and negative 3x are like terms. If we're combining terms, like terms, if the signs are different, you subtract. So 3 minus 2, which is just 1x, you write as x. And you keep the sign of the bigger one. So it's going to be negative x. Negative x minus 12 equals negative 5. All right, so now we've simplified and combined like terms. Now let's go ahead and isolate x. To do that, we'll first of all add 12 to both sides. That yields negative x equals. Now what is negative 5 plus 12? Since the signs are different, we'll subtract 12 minus 5, 7, and keep the sign of the bigger. The bigger of the two is positive, so our sum is going to be positive. Okay, to finish this off, we'll simply divide both sides by negative 1. And that gives us minus over minus plus slash and dash x equals, it's supposed to be minus 1. Divide both sides by minus 1. Positive over negative, signs are different. So whenever you're dividing numbers with different signs, you have minus. So your answer is x equals negative 7. Answer is option letter B. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 9. We have negative 3 times 5 minus 6 minus 4 times the quantity 2 minus 3 equals. Now, one warning for the Accuplacer exam is that when a problem looks extremely easy, proceed with caution. Okay, so a problem like this, you might look at it and say, oh, that's an easy problem. These are the problems you want to be really careful about. Why? Not because you're difficult, is because these are the ones that are the easiest to make little mistakes on. Okay, and the test makers normally have excellent distractors, excellent traps to catch students who are not paying attention to the tricky nature of problems like this. Okay, So let's really be careful when attacking problems that look easy. Could be a disguise. All right, so these are the steps we're going to use for this problem. First of all, we're going to use the order of operations again. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We're going to address the parentheses first. That's what P in PEMDAS is for. All right. After doing that, we'll multiply and then combine like terms using addition and subtraction. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. We have negative 3 times 5 minus 6 minus 4 times 2 minus 3. So let's combine the terms in the parentheses first. We have negative 3 times 5 minus 6 is negative 1. Remember, whenever you're combining numbers with different signs, subtract and keep the sign of the bigger. 2 minus 3, the same story here, negative 1 is the difference. Now multiply. When you're multiplying the same signs, minus times minus, it becomes positive, so this becomes positive 3. And then here, minus times minus, this becomes positive. 4 times 1 is 4. 3 plus 4 is 7. Answer is option letter B. Okay, let's take a look at number 10, the last one in this review series. It reads, which of the following expressions is equivalent to 20 minus 4 over 5x greater than or equal to 16? Now, a quick reminder, when solving inequalities, dividing or multiplying by a negative number reverses the order of the inequality. So if you multiply an inequality, with greater than by -1, it switches to less than. And if it is less than, it switches to greater. Okay, so that's the difference between solving equations and solving inequalities. You want to pay close attention to signs and the orientation or order of your inequality symbol. Okay, so these are the steps we're going to use here. We'll try and isolate the term with the x on one side, namely this term negative 4 over 5x. And then we'll get rid of the coefficient negative 4 over 5 and make the appropriate adjustments to the orientation of our inequality symbol as needed, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do this. So in this problem, we have 20 minus 4 over 5x is greater than or equal to 16. So let's first of all, we'll subtract 20 from both sides. So we can isolate the term with the x, okay? So subtract 20, I don't know where 12 came from. All right, subtract 20 from both sides. So we have negative 4 over 5x is greater than or equal to, now these two numbers have different signs, so we'll subtract 4 and keep the sign of the bigger negative. Okay, so how do we get x by itself? We can do it in one step or two steps. I'll do it in one step. Just get rid of the coefficient at once. You accomplish this by multiplying by the reciprocal, okay? So what is the reciprocal of negative 4 over 5? It's negative 5 over 4. Okay, both sides. Note, reciprocation does not reverse the sign of a number. Okay, so if you take the negative of if you take the reciprocal of a negative number, you end up with a negative number. The same applies to positive numbers also. All right, so let's see what happens here. This divides out, that divides out. Minus times minus, slash and dash is plus. So we have x, all right? So what happens to the inequality here? Do we switch the orientation or does it stay the same? We multiplied by a negative number, so we have to switch the orientation to less than, okay? Less than or equal to. Now, how do we deal with this product on the left, on the right? Put this over 1 and we can cross reduce, okay? Or you can multiply and divide the same thing, we'll get the same answer. So let's cross reduce. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 4 once. Minus times minus is plus, slash and dash. 5 times 1 is 5. If you wanted to multiply, you'd have got negative 20 over actually positive 20 over 4, and then you divide it to get 5. Okay, so our answer is x is less than or equal to 5. Answer is option letter A. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. I really appreciate it. If you found this tutorial beneficial to you, please give us a thumbs up. We'll appreciate your positive feedback. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel for updates to this review series. If you have any questions about the Accuplacer math exam or need any kind of support, just place your questions or comments in the comment section below, and we'll be glad to address it as soon as possible. Don't forget to check out our interactive practice test. By clicking on this link, you have access to some cool problems to perfect your skills. More clips can be found on mathgotserved.com. Thanks again for watching, and have a wonderful day.